part of what we're doing at the Hockey Think Tank, and one of the best hockey minds that I know. Now we're going to let the listeners and the audience learn a little bit more about Gags and women hockey as a whole. So how you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be part of the 10 questions, and obviously super exciting what all the happenings with the Hockey Think Tank.
Absolutely. I'm pumped. All right, let's get it started here. Question one for you. So you grew up in a very, very non-traditional market, and you grew up in Carolina, and you're back there now doing some pretty cool things. But wanted to ask you, like, coming from a non-traditional market, there's going to be a lot of people watching this that come from there. What do you think is important when it comes to, if you have aspirations of playing at the highest of levels, coming from one of those markets, what would it be?
Yeah, it's a good question. And obviously, the non-traditional markets have evolved a lot in the last 10 or 15 years, where there's a lot more opportunities. But I was really fortunate when we moved down to Carolina, was finding good coaches. It wasn't necessarily the tier one programs, but I had really good coaches that taught me kind of how to play the game the right way. And so, if you're in a non-traditional market, is really kind of looking for coaches that might be able to provide that, and just really a program that aligns with the opportunity to kind of develop you guys as players would probably be the most important thing, and just taking advantage of what you've got. Probably had a little less ice time than some kids growing up, but just kind of made the most of what we had. We were having fun with it, so we didn't know any different. And then as you get older, you try and take advantage of things off the ice that you can do to kind of keep that competitive advantage and keep growing your game.
I love that. And it's interesting. I tell people all the time that I almost feel like your growth as a player sometimes is based upon the luck of the draw and when you were born. And if a parent at that age group has a kid that's your age too, that can really, really coach. And you look at like some of these places around the country that have gone on to have, like at the boys side, like the Keith Kachucks of the world, the Al McInnes of the world in St. Louis, and some people from a bunch of different spots. Like, how lucky are you to have a coach like that, and that can help you develop?
Yeah, it's cool. And obviously down in Carolina too now, some of those guys that play on the Hurricanes, they have kids now and they're sticking around and coaching and giving back. So when you can do that, especially, you see in St. Louis how they have had, 5 first-round draft picks a few years ago, the impact that can have on really all the age groups, but especially those couple that have those kind of coaches, it goes a really long way.
Yeah, are there? I would imagine just with Carolina being Carolina, you have a lot of players that retire there and end up staying there.
Yeah, definitely a couple. Eric Cole, Shane Willis, even Brendan Moore comes out and helps out at like the summer camps. He's got his second son is a little younger. I think he's only like 8 or something like that, but I'm sure he'll be around. And so it makes a really big difference having that kind of high level quality coaching and experience.
Yeah, for sure. Rod the Bod, Brendan Moore coming out, showing his thing.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, you parlayed that experience down in Carolina, moved away from home to go have an experience at Shattuck St. Mary's, which is one of the top hockey prep schools for men and women in the country. And wanted to ask you, what was your experience like at Shattuck?
Yeah, it's funny. You talk about kind of just luck of the draw and timing. And I feel like the whole Shattuck experience going as a freshman couldn't have been luckier in terms of the timing and where the program was at and the opportunity I had as a player to kind of jump in and, play a lot of minutes and get all that ice time that I never had before. So I feel like I went there at the perfect time for me. And then obviously was fortunate to go there for 4 years. But I think it's unparalleled in terms of the quality of coaching you get, the amount of ice time and games you're playing, and the development. And I think too, it's just the preparation. It sets you up for college and beyond, of time management and being able to bond with the players on your team and really put the team first before yourself and work together towards a goal. Our goal is to win the national championship every year. And so I think that mindset instilled as a freshman at 14 all the way throughout college and beyond really stayed with me throughout my career.
Yeah, did you have some pretty good coaching there too, I would imagine?
Yeah. I played 2 years at U16 and then 2 years on the girls prep team with Gordy Stafford, and just a phenomenal coach. I learned so much from him in terms of development. It's funny too, because there he was also the English teacher, so you'd see him in the classroom, and then he'd also be your coach on the ice. But yeah, I think it just, we would practice at 7 a.m. every morning and a lot of cold, dark walks to the rink for practice. But, it was just something where, I wanted to get on early. I wanted to take advantage of every possible opportunity to make the most. I think I realized how lucky I was to be in that situation, and obviously the sacrifices my family made to allow me to take advantage of that situation. So wanted to make the most of it, and obviously you're surrounded by a lot of great players and people that kind of are all vying for the same thing.
Yeah, I think there's something very, very like confidence boosting about practicing at the worst times in the world, especially like early in the morning because it's like nobody else is doing this.
Yeah, it
We're
does
we're
give you
outworking
kind of an
everybody
edge.
right now. Gives
Yeah.
give you a little bit of an edge. Do you think? Did you guys ever talk about that?
Oh, no, but it's funny because then at Cornell, 3 of my 4 years, we practiced at 7 a.m. too. So for like 7 years straight, I was just used to getting up at 5:45, whatever it was, and getting to the rink and getting on the ice and practicing. So I do think it kind of has still carried with me where I like getting up early and trying to take advantage of things. Maybe a little mental edge of other people aren't up yet doing things. So yeah, and I think as a group and as a team, you kind of say, hey, we're doing this and we know other teams aren't. This is going to give us an edge in the long run. Being willing to commit and sacrifice and do these things to perform.
That's cool, and they really give you the tools necessary to be able to become a better hockey player there, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. Again, being on the ice every day, I think is so huge. But just the quality of coaching, I know it's come a long way, but they have new gym facilities and things like that. So you're doing the off ice training, nutrition. You're getting access to these resources, and it really kind of been kind of the more perfect stepping stone for my hockey career.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I can tell you I've recruited at that rink quite a few times, and it might be the coldest rink in.
Yeah.
It's funny you think about Shattuck and all the people that have went there, and the first time I went there, I'm like, oh, it's going to be this, glorious thing, and you go there and it's you freeze,
Yeah. Yeah, I think
frostbite
that
on
was
the
kind of
toes.
fun is very blue collar, like, you see, some of the maybe East Coast prep schools with really nice dorms and all these things. And, I know Shag's made some improvements, but it was kind of very blue collar. It wasn't anything, no frills. It was kind of just show up, do the work, be challenged, and kind of embrace it all and, compete.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, you went from Shattuck St. Mary's to Cornell. Typically, I have a think tank, some sort of think tank stuff on right now, but I made sure to put my Cornell shirt on
There
here
we go.
today. So you had an unbelievable experience at Cornell, and not many people can say that they won a league championship literally every year that they were at a college, and you guys were able to do that. So aside from the fact that you guys had really good players, what was it about that program that allowed you guys to like literally 4 championships in 4 years? That's nuts. How'd you guys do it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's a big testament to Doug and the culture the coaching staff had built. My freshman year, actually, I was coming in when they had just lost in the triple overtime national championship game the year before, with a really small roster too. I think they only carried like 18 or 19 players into that game. So we were coming in, and expectations were higher. You make it to the national championship game, it doesn't get much more higher than that, but I think it was the competitiveness of all the players from seniors to the freshmen is really everybody wanted to get better. I was fortunate there was quite a few Canadian national team girls on the team, and so everyone was really pushing to not only prove themselves but to level up and play that team game. And obviously we found a lot of success throughout the 4 years, and just a really great learning experience. I think again that being in that environment where everybody wants to get better, it literally forces everyone to level up, because if you don't show up at practice, you're gonna gonna look pretty stupid. So I think knowing that every day you had to go in, try and outwork everybody and continue to improve as an individual and as a group was a really big part of the culture.
That's awesome. And how was it like in your guys' practices? I can imagine because you guys had so many good players. You mentioned the Canadian national players. Like those must have been a lot of fun being able to compete against the best players in the world at the time.
Yeah, it was, and I think that was something that going into that program was, I remember someone saying, on defense they had Laura Fortino and Lorianne Rougeau, who were teed up to be the top two defensemen on the Canadian national team, and they kind of said, oh, you're going to go in behind them, like you're never going to play. But I was looking at it as I wanted to go practice against the best players every day, and the amount I would be able to learn from them, and obviously going against the Jenners and Johnstons and things like that, day in and day out of practice. I knew it would make me a better player, and I liked that obviously that the coaching staff was open to playing whoever could play the team game and get an opportunity right there as a freshman.
That's awesome. Do you have a favorite memory?
Probably beating Harvard, and I think it was the ECAC finals was
Love
really
it.
cool. Just we had a good crowd. I think 3,000 or 4,000 people, and everyone chanting "Harvard sucks" was pretty cool. But then also the triple overtime game against Boston University, my sophomore year. Basically played 2 full games.
I remember
And
that.
that was the
You guys,
NCAA.
we had,
Yeah, you guys
we
went to
had
overtime
right
too. That
after you guys.
Yeah, there was a lot of hockey at Lina that day. But yeah, that was obviously to make it to the NCAA Frozen Four, and so that was a really cool memory.
That's unreal. Yeah, I remember when Rougeau scored that goal because it was with what 4 or 5 seconds left that she scored it. I think.
Yeah, and the end of the triple overtime, so we were
So
about to go into the fourth.
yeah,
Yeah.
we were getting ready. The game had already been pushed back in, I don't know, an hour or two or whatever. And then we're like, oh my God, this is going to go into a 4th overtime.
Yeah,
Then and the goal was like ridiculous.
it was so cool. And looking back, you watch the video, and it looks like such slow motion. Like everyone's so exhausted and tired that in the moment, it felt like it was a really great goal, but it was just so funny how tired both teams were. And, you hated that either team had to lose, but obviously I was glad. It's a better memory that we won.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, kind of going along with that. So, as a former college coach, I can speak a lot to the path to college hockey from the men's side for sure. But we get questions all the time from families of girls that aspire to play in college hockey as well, and it's a different path. Obviously, there's not as much junior hockey and things like that. So, if you had like a piece of advice or any kind of wisdom for a younger girl that's watching this that has aspirations to play at a Cornell or play college hockey, what piece of advice would you give to those people?
Yeah, and this is probably something you would tell on the boys' side too, but I think just not comparing yourself to other players. I kind of, in my experience, I was a relatively late bloomer, and obviously the recruiting has gone younger, and then they've tried to make rules to move it back a little bit. But I think it can be really easy as a young player to see so and so committed, and so's doing this, and so's doing that. And you want to take advantage of every opportunity you can, but I think making sure that as long as you're developing and getting better every day, every week, every month, and every season, I think that's really all you can compare yourself to. But it is really easy to get caught in a so and so's doing this, so and so committed at age 14, and feeling like you're always behind. And then I think the biggest thing with that then too is not rushing into a commitment or a decision just because you feel like rushed by it. I think making sure you find a program. This was probably the best advice I ever got was pick a school or pick a program where even if something happened and hockey got taken away, you would still enjoy being there. And I knew that pretty much the second I stepped on the Cornell campus that I would love to be part of that community and things like that. And so it made that decision a lot easier. But I think it's important to look for aspects beyond the rink that you're going to enjoy as well.
Yeah, and so you mentioned the late bloomer too. So everybody develops at different rates for sure. So for that late bloomer type girl who might not hit puberty at the younger ages as other people, we don't have, or there's not as much of a junior hockey circuit in the girls side. So if you're hitting puberty a little bit later, maybe your junior year in high school rather than in 8th grade or something like that, what would be maybe some advice that you would have for those girls to keep along the path when they know they only have maybe like a year or two more before they have to make that decision?
Yeah, and I guess too in terms of like late bloomer, I guess more for me it was I just kind of, I never made national camp until I was 17. I tried out every year, and Southeast would send one forward and one D, and that was never me. So I wasn't getting in front of college coaches at those national camps and things like that. And I wasn't doing all these summer tournaments that market the coaches are going to be there, and things like that. So I think the biggest thing is just trying to control what you can control. And I think if things are going a little later, I think, making sure you're committed to the off ice and the mental skills, and just keeping that confidence, even if it kind of feels like, you're behind, or, their players are doing whatever they are. It's just keeping your confidence and making sure that you're getting better. And I think, you would, um, probably feel the same way based on what, your recruiting experience, but making sure you have the good body language, the work ethic, and you're doing all those little things right on the ice. You don't have to be the most talented player in the world to get a spot in college hockey, or to reach whatever level you want to. But I think if you're focused on, the attitude and effort and being a good teammate, I think the chips usually fall in a pretty good place.
Yeah, and if you get better, like, we'll find you. You mentioned that you didn't get to the national camps and all that kind of stuff at those ages. I mean, that's okay, because if you just continue to
Yeah.
grow and you continue to get better, I mean, our networks as college coaches, whether it's men or women, are so vast and wide that I mean, there are people that slide through the cracks every once in a while, but it
Mhm.
doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. And too, I would kind of tell players to, be their own advocate in terms of, reaching out to coaches proactively. Um, you know, every school has different kinds of recruiting budgets and things like that. And if you're going to be in their area, or if they're going to be at a tournament, maybe send them your schedule and things like that. And who knows what can happen.
Yeah, that's like the biggest piece of advice I give to people. So be your own best advocate and reach out to as many people as you can. There's not a That's not a bad thing. Some people think like, oh, maybe I'm badgering if I'm sending all these emails out. But if you're gonna do it, do it in the right way. Because if you send me a 5 paragraph essay about yourself and all this kind of stuff, chances are I'm not going to read it.
Yeah.
There's so many other things that I have going on. So I think the best way to reach out to coaches is shoot them an email. This is my name. This is my team. Here's my next 10 games on my schedule. Here's my coach's number. Maybe if you have a couple other people in your area that know you and can vouch for you, put that on there. Maybe stats or something like that. Just like a little short blurb of who you are. And then all these coaches, they have these big databases that they just enter your name in. So the next time they go to watch a tournament or a showcase or whatever it may be, they print out their list and they have a little tick mark on your name because you reached out. And then it's like, oh, I should probably watch that player today
Yeah.
because they're interested in our school. So shoot them emails. Don't shoot them emails once a week.
Yeah.
Shoot them one email and then maybe one every once in a while, just to kind of check in and maybe give it a schedule of your next, 10, 15 games or whatever like that may be. But be your own best advocate, and reaching out is never a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's another, piece of advice I would encourage girls, especially maybe in more non-traditional markets where you're not in like a Boston or Minnesota, and kind of right there in the heart of things, is, make sure they know when you're going to be coming up to those areas, and can check out some games.
Yeah, for sure. And if you have like a little short video clip too,
Hmm.
maybe you have a YouTube page or something like that that you can point coaches to so they can watch maybe 2 or 3 minutes. If you send us a 10-minute video, we're probably not going to watch that 10-minute video unless the first minute really makes us jump out of our seat.
Yeah. Better be a
So,
good highlight to start the video.
exactly. But we never really used those videos
Yeah.
very much. Uh,
Yeah.
but if you have it, I guess it's not the worst thing in the world. Uh,
Hmm.
so yeah, reach out. So all right, that's good stuff, guys. All right, I want to move on here. One of the biggest, not regrets. It's not regrets isn't the right word, but one of the things that I always wanted to do but never got the chance to do was represent our country in international play, and I made it to be an alternate one year. But never
Oh,
actually got the chance to put the jersey on and play for our country. But you got the chance to do that a couple different times for Team USA, won a gold medal at the Four Nations Cup. So wanted to ask you what that experience was like being able to play for Team USA, and what kind of just it must have been awesome.
yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of another aspect where, I don't know, late bloomer is the right term, but, I, at 15 years old, I was dreaming to play for the, United States under 18 team. They had started the U18 Girls World Championships, and, that was my goal every year, and saw a lot of players that I knew make it every year. And again, they were picking those teams from national camp, and I wasn't making national camp until my final year. And then, I didn't make the U18 team again. So, that was obviously very disappointing. So then, you start looking, okay, I'll make the U22 team, and, wouldn't get invited to the summer camps and different things like that. And, finally, after I think my sophomore year, at Cornell, got invited to, one of the August festivals where, they invite like 80 players, and it's a lot of different age groups, and just kind of some scrimmages and things like that. But again, didn't really make any of those teams. And, finally, actually, the first time I got to wear the USA jersey was the summer after my senior year. I was still 22. And it was a under 22 series. So I'd gone to a few camps. I got to try out for actually the 2014 Olympic team. So those were just kind of different camps and stuff, which obviously is a huge honor to go to those camps even and wear the jersey, even if it's a, practice jersey or whatever. But, you see you're there with all the best players in the country and frankly, most best players in the world. So those were always such cool opportunities. And, even just, again, getting a tryout for the Olympic team in 2014 was huge. And then finally made a U22 team after I graduated college there. And actually Ken Klee was the coach. He had come in. Yeah. He had come in after the 2014 Olympics, and so got to play there. And then about 2 months after that, we just did a 3-game series with Canada. And then about 2 months after that, I got to play in 4 nations. I was kind of actually an alternate as well. I think someone got injured. So I got the call up.
Someone got injured.
Yeah, I know. So obviously I was super fortunate. And yeah, I think, I had to wait, I think I was a healthy scratch first 2 games. So I kind of had to wait a little longer than, maybe I was hoping to get to play. But then obviously you get to pull on a jersey, and it's just pretty surreal. And, again, it goes back to when you're 15 dreaming of this moment, and, 7-8 years later, you finally get it. So it was pretty cool, and obviously just a really cool moment where my family was able to fly out and be there, and kind of be able to share that with them was really special.
Yeah. So where was it when you guys won the gold?
We won that so my first year was in Kamloops, and we lost to Canada overtime. Yeah. And then won the next year in Sweden in 2015. Yeah.
Unreal. Oh
yeah.
Man, that's cool. How cool is it going to the Olympic tryouts?
It was really cool. Yeah. Again, it was, they basically brought 40 girls in, and we played a couple different kind of exhibition games against one another and things like that, testing and whatnot. But yeah, it was really cool. And, obviously it was nerve wracking, and I felt like I had a really good tryout. So I felt, disappointed obviously to not make it, but the silver linings were, I really kind of left that with no regrets. I felt like I played as best I could. And two, the silver lining was I got to graduate with my class at Cornell without having to defer a year. Which was ended up being, kind of a really great opportunity to graduate with my best friends that I already, spent 3 years with, and be able to do that with them.
So how were you? So that was your senior year. That was the year that the Olympics was.
Yeah. So the tryouts for the 2014 Olympics were in 2013.
Yeah.
The summer of 2013, and then they take 25 players, and they'll all just train together leading up to the Olympics. So I would have had to defer a year.
Okay, so how many girls went on the Canadian team that were playing with you guys at Cornell at the time?
For the 2014, I think we just lost Jenner because the other ones had already graduated.
Okay, got it.
So yeah, I think we were only missing Brianne Jenner that 1 year, but and she was in our class, so again, kind of a bummer not to get to play our senior year with her, but it worked out for her to get a gold medal.
That's okay. Yeah.
think she'll be all right.
Although maybe you guys would have won the national championship if she was
I know. We definitely could have used her that year.
Oh, that's funny. Well, good stuff. I mean, that's such a cool thing to be able to represent your country in tournaments. Oh, gosh, we're so close. But after your Cornell career, you mentioned you did that, but you also got the chance to play pro hockey as well. And you got to play in Boston, won a Clarkson Cup with the CWHL, I believe it was at the time, now the NWHL. So what was that experience like, getting the chance to play professional hockey after you were done?
Yeah, it was it was exciting to keep playing. But the reality of the situation, in basically the Canadian Women's Hockey League was the only one that existed at the time when I was graduating, and there was one team in the US, and it was Boston. And if I still had aspirations to make the national team and things like that. So you packed up and moved to Boston, and the reality is the Women's Pro League wasn't paying at the time, but it was really the only option to continue to train. And we trained at Mike Boyle's, and you're practicing with the national, a lot of the girls that just relocate to Boston to practice and train. And we had a fun group that year, though, and obviously winning at the end was a great time. But it was definitely a bit of a shock coming out of college, where you have athletic trainers and full-time staff and all these resources, a locker room that decent practice times that you really take for granted. So it was definitely different, but it was kind of the reality of the situation at the time. And then the following season, the National Women's Hockey League started. So they were offering, a little bit of money and paycheck, and being able to get paid to play. And they really kind of took a step forward in terms of what they were offering and things like that. So a lot of us moved over there, and I ended up playing there for 4 seasons.
Very cool. Very cool. So I think that's something that nobody really realizes, is just how unglamorous that lifestyle is for you guys. And so did most of the women move to Boston to play for the team and then had to find jobs somewhere in Boston, or did some of them move to Boston and just so happened there was a pro team there, so they tried out? Like, how did that kind of work?
Yeah, kind of after college, if you wanted to try and make the national team, your option was pretty much go to Boston or don't have an option. Or, some girls would go to Europe, but, then you're not really as involved there and things. So, a lot of girls just, moved there and would either kind of find part-time coaching gigs or things like that. But, to his credit, Mike Boyle let us train at his gym, and we had a really great group kind of training and pushing each other. And obviously was fun to be able to keep playing. I think that was the most important part. But at a certain point, you stop being just grateful for the bare minimum, and want a little bit more for the sport and the next wave of players coming out of college and all those different things.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you guys are certainly doing a lot of work on that end right now, and wanted to ask you about that because you guys have formed the PWHPA, Professional Women's Hockey Players Association. It's a mouthful. I always have to stop and make sure I do it right. So tell us a little bit about the PWHPA and your involvement and what you guys are trying to do.
Yeah, in hindsight, we probably would have used less letters. It is a little bit of a mouthful. But yeah, so the PWHPA formed last year in 2019. The Canadian Women's Hockey League had actually folded pretty unexpectedly. And, as there was pretty much all the Canadian national team girls and great players in Canada were playing in that league. A lot of the U.S. girls were playing in the National Women's Hockey League. So you had all this great talent that was divided into 2 leagues. And then when the Canadian League folded, kind of all the players came together and just, wanted to really be realistic about where the state of the game was. And like I said, the NWHL made a lot of great strides in the game, being able to provide, kind of a part-time wage. Again, it's nothing to make a living off of. And they were able to really kind of push things forward. But I think collectively as a whole, it wasn't where where we're hoping the game can really be at this point with the amount of talent and, where women's sports are. You see the WNBA and the success they've had, professional women's soccer and things like that. So the association really was kind of a step back in the sense of looking at the bigger picture and realizing, hey, our generation of players might not benefit from this, but we're determined to create a league with the support to really make women's hockey a full-time profession, make a living. We're not talking $1 million contracts, but to be able to make a living and actually train and play full-time. Since college, I haven't been on the ice more than 2 days in a row because there's no opportunity to do so. And, you look at the pro hockey guys and that's an opportunity they get in so many leagues at so many levels, and they make a living off of it. So that's kind of our goal with the PWHPA, is really kind of looking at some of the really successful women's models and being able to just push the sport forward in that regard.
Yeah, I think it's so cool you guys doing that, just because you guys are sacrificing a little bit right now to make sure that the next generation coming up has a better opportunity than you guys did, and is that something that you guys talk about quite a bit?
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep in mind. The flip side is there's a lot of really great players right now that the Kendall Coynes of the world, the Poulins, the Jenner, all these players that are pretty in their prime of their career and not really getting to showcase it as much as we'd like, other than the Olympics and the World Championships mostly. So we're hopeful that this generation of players will be able to benefit a little bit from that. But I think the reality is we've all had to have that conversation with ourselves that it's really not about us. It's kind of about the future. And if we have to sacrifice for that, then I think it's you leave the sport in a better spot than you found it.
That's amazing. Well, one of the things that you guys are doing to keep busy from a hockey standpoint is you've put together this Dream Gap tour and going around to a bunch of different cities and held these showcases. And not only just holding these showcases, but actually getting into the community and having clinics and things like that for the girls to come out and skate with you guys. How has that been? What has that experience been like, being able to go around with the Dream Gap tour?
Yeah, it was really cool how it came together. Obviously, we kind of had to do the best with what we had based on the timing and things like that. But it was really cool to go to some different cities that we've never really been to, as because there's no teams there, whatever it may be, and yeah, be able to interact and show the game in Chicago and Philadelphia and Toronto and all these different places that we don't normally get to go to. So, and the biggest thing was, one, obviously, you want to provide entertaining games and things like that, but two is really kind of bringing that awareness to the fact that there is that dream gap between young boys and young girls. Little boys can dream to play in the NHL and make a living, and little girls don't have that opportunity. So that was, as much as it was about hockey and on the ice, it was also about kind of starting that conversation and kind of spreading the message that this is what we're fighting for.
Yeah, it's unreal. And how cool is it to see the little girls who come? Because you guys got really good crowds. I think one of the crowds in Anaheim was like 14,000 people, right? And so,
Yeah, that was the U.S. Canada game, so a little
okay.
bit outside the Dream Gap tour, but yeah, I think that was a perfect example of Anaheim, California. 13,000 people came to watch a U.S. versus Canada game that wasn't part of a World Championship. It was basically an exhibition game, and the crowd was incredible. Then the vibe and the environment was great, and it was an awesome hockey game.
That's very cool. And like when you were around and can see and get on the ice with the little girls and all that kind of stuff, did you get any kind of a sense of, because you guys didn't really have mentors to look up to aside from maybe watching the Olympics every 4 years.
Yeah.
So, with being able to get out with some of these younger girls, was it pretty cool to be able to see them kind of look at you guys and be like, okay, maybe I can do this someday too?
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite parts about where I'm at now, is being able to give back and kind of help, hopefully provide a path for girls to kind of look to if they choose that path. And so it's definitely cool moments to be doing clinics and things like that. And you hope you leave a really lasting impression on those girls that they want to pursue the sport, they want to pursue whatever it is they want, and they have role models to get there.
That's awesome. Well, the next question I had for you, going back to role models, I'm a hockey director right now, and one of the biggest obstacles is that I sit around and I did a big meeting with a lot of people in the area of to try and get everybody on the same page when it comes to women's hockey, because I feel like it's kind of played second fiddle a lot of times, as I'm sure it does in a lot of different places. And I'm sitting around the room, and there's maybe 13, 14 people in the room, and there's two women.
Hmm.
And so I would love to get more women involved in leadership position. I think youth hockey as a whole would be much better if it was run by a lot more women, and there were a lot more women as presidents of organizations, a lot more women making decisions at the USA hockey level, and not just like kind of like pegged to like, okay, you guys are in charge of women's hockey, but just as hockey as a whole. I just feel like it would be so much better. So how do you think we can get more women's coaches? How do you think we can get more women, maybe it's hockey moms or whatever, involved in taking these kind of leadership type positions to help grow our sport in that way?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think a lot of it comes down to just having opportunities. I know the NHL Coaches Association actually is launching, or at least they've announced for this upcoming season, like a female coaching program. where basically the NHL Coaches Association is trying to do exactly that, is encourage more women to get into coaching, educate them, have them interact with the NHL coaches, and then, go back to their youth organizations and hopefully take a bigger role. So, I think you're seeing more women's coaches in college hockey and things like that, but on the women's side at least. But I think there's a really huge opportunity, and I think the NHL's, or hockey in general, is probably lagging behind some other sports in terms of those opportunities for women. But I think too, we need to just kind of keep pushing the envelope and creating opportunities for ourselves. And I think it'll go a long way. I think you see kind of Noelle Needham and Haley Wickenheiser getting involved on the Blake Bolden. She's a scout for the LA Kings now. So I think small things like that are going to go a really long way for other organizations to kind of open that door as well. But I think it comes with having GMs or whoever it may be that have open minds to kind of get outside the, I don't want to say old boys club, but basically that.
It's an old boys club.
Yeah. So, I think it comes to just an open mind with that, and minorities too. You don't see a lot of African American coaches or things like that, and I think there's a long way to go for the sport of hockey to be able to have more women and minority coaches being involved.
Well, let me ask you another question when it comes to this. So if you ask the players about management, or you ask the players about coaching and all that kind of stuff, like, they don't care what you look like. They don't care where you come from. They don't care, like, if you're a male or a woman or what your sexual orientation is. Like, you look at Brian Burke and what he did for the gay community, in his son coming out, and then him being in such a support of it. And then the You Can Play project ends up happening, and the entire NHL stands behind him when it comes to those kinds of things. Like, again, the players just help them win. Just help them become better. It doesn't really matter who you look like, what you look like, or anything like that. So, do you feel like that stuff really has to come from the top down, though? Because you look at Brian Burke, he's a guy that's at the top of the food chain and has all this power and stuff, and the influence that he was able to wield. Do you think the NHL has to be a leader at the top in promoting this kind of diversity?
Yeah, I think it coming from the top definitely helps move the needle. It helps change the minds. It helps kind of basically start conversations around, hey, this is an option, or these are, we need to be looking outside of our normal, old boys club kind of thing. And so I think that's going a long way. And with the NHL Coaches Association doing a female specific coaching program, where they're literally taking female coaches from across the country and pairing them with their local NHL organization, and you get opportunities to learn from NHL coaches. And I think that's what it's going to come down to is, everyone's in a room talking hockey, and no one really cares, male, female, gay, straight, anything. It's, are you helping our team move forward? Are you helping the players develop? And, I like to think that players feel that way too. And that the more and more opportunities you get with women as scouts like Blake and Cami Granado and Noelle Needham and Haley Wickenheiser, and then and goes into player development and power skating and all these different things, you slowly kind of get that momentum, and it just continues to grow, and more opportunities become available. And I think seeing some women take that step makes other women want to do that too, and then it's kind of a real domino effect. And I think it'd be a real game changer for the way hockey runs and in the way it's played, and just more ideas, the better,
Yeah, for sure. And then the more women that get into it, and the more it becomes normalized because you guys are going to do a really good job, the more other people will be open to hiring you. And so,
yeah. And then, it's kind of the trickle down effect of the more women want to get involved in the sport, the more opportunities in the sport to, create that professional atmosphere, having more women at games. And, that trickles all the way down into girls starting hockey because they can see it. They can see women as coaches, as players, as scouts, as agents, and things like that. And, it goes back to if you can see it, you can be it. And that's something that I think is really important.
Love it. Okay, well, going along with that, the last question I have for you is, you're throwing the coaching hat on now this year, and going to be helping out with a team in Carolina. So kind of two-part question. Number one is, You're actually working with the Hurricanes to help and try and grow the game there in Carolina. So wanted to ask you what that experience was like, and then also how excited are you to get into coaching yourself now, and what are you looking forward to from that aspect?
Yeah, I guess the first part. So I started with the Carolina Hurricanes back in December. I'd helped with their summer camps and things like that for a few years in the past, and I was moving back to Raleigh, and yeah, they kind of came up with this position as girls and women's hockey specialist. So I work heavily with the youth hockey side, but just about creating opportunities for girls and women to get on the ice more, have more opportunities, whether it's getting introduced to the game or just providing a little bit higher level coaching. But we also did some fun stuff. We did a father-daughter clinic this spring, which was a lot of fun, and some try hockey for free events, and had a couple others planned, obviously, but hockey had a little pause here. But yeah, so I think, that's been a lot of fun, just trying to be creative with it. Again, the Hurricanes are really supportive they have a really great fan base, one, but, we want to continue to grow that, and specifically continue to grow the girls and women's side. Obviously, the more fans, the better. And I think there's a really huge market down there of people that are wanting to try hockey or get involved and kind of have that experience. So that's really exciting, and hopefully continue to kind of be able to create some new programming in the future. And then, so I'll be coaching it's kind of a junior style program for girls down in Carolina. And it was an exciting opportunity to take on an assistant coaching role. I've done my own skills camps, and I really like the skill development stuff. But this will be kind of the first team I've worked with for a season, so I'll be learning a lot. I'm sure I'm sure I have ideas going into it that are going to change rather quickly. But I'm really excited because it's the first year of this program. We'll have the girls on the ice 4 or 5 days a week, really focused on player development. And it's an opportunity for girls to stay in the South and not have to go up to a prep school or boarding school, to be able to stay home, stay local, and get kind of the same opportunity, and kind of have that development with on ice and off ice training, and going up to some big tournaments. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of be there especially for year one, and try and develop that culture, and really help girls progress over the course of the season. So it'll be a fun challenge, and it's definitely a different perspective on the coaching side, but now I'm seeing things in a way where I'm like, wow, I wish I knew this as a player, so it's kind
Oh
of
my
funny.
God,
I'm
yeah,
like, I would have been so much better.
I know. I say that all the time as a coach.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, if I only thought this way, or if I only listened a little bit more to this or
Yeah.
that, you
It's
think
funny on the
about it's better.
perspective. Yeah, you're like, wow, that just never clicked with me when I was a player for some reason, but now it seems so obvious
Yeah.
why we would do X, Y, or Z. So it's been a fun learning experience so far, and obviously I'm sure it'll be a quite a learning experience kind of going into the season, but it should be fun.
Yeah, unreal. Well, you are going to be an amazing coach, and those girls are lucky to have you. So we're lucky to have you with all of our think tank stuff here as well, and keep doing that great work that you guys are doing. Hopefully, we can see you in a rink actually at some point here
Yeah.
in the future. But appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and looking forward to